As soon as I clicked record, I was terrified.
The negative impact, I think, of social and content creation is, well, I've lost friends, but is that a negative impact, really?
In the past, I definitely was not paid what I was worth as a creative. Kind of the addiction and the dopamine rush of if I'm putting out content, yeah, I'll admit I'm that guy who's kind of scrolling and hitting refresh.
My name is Sam.
Let's pause here quick because I want to give you a little bit more context. So I chose 4 people from my tax community, all of which are creators. And I wanted to explore what it means to be a creator, what goes into it, how do they make money, and how hard is it? Because so many of us want to create, but there's so many ways to go about it, so many different ways to be successful. So let's get into it.
My name is Sam Lister, and I create my dream life.
My name is Justin Jackson, and I create films. My name is Richie Burke. I've created the podcast, The Go-Getters.
My name is Jackie Hermes, and I create a lot of stuff.
Do you consider yourself a creator, and why?
I consider myself a creator because no matter the medium, I'm able to take something in my head and apply it to that medium so that other people can view it and enjoy it.
And I guess I've always been a creative. Now that creator is such a popular term on like LinkedIn and social media, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm a creator.
I do consider myself a creator, but I consider myself an entrepreneur first. I express my emotions and thoughts through visual experiences.
I think every entrepreneur is a creator. Essentially, they're creating something out of thin air and bringing it to the world and trying to successfully bring it into the world and have people buy into that product or service. So yeah, I do consider myself a creator as well as every other entrepreneur, even if they don't quote unquote, create content.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you agree with this statement? Creators need to have a niche to succeed.
10. I definitely think creators have to be very focused and very targeted to succeed. I speak to entrepreneurs growing companies, and my agency works with B2B software companies.
I would disagree with that statement. I would give it a 3. Fairly disagree with that statement if I'm getting the rate right, because that's something that has been pushed on me since I started creating. I view building a personal brand as building yourself. And are you, as a human being, one-dimensional or multi-dimensional? It's probably multi-dimensional. You like a lot of different things. Maybe you like gaming, you like video, you like podcasts, you like snowboarding. What's holding you back from mixing all of those into your personality and into your content? So when it comes to picking your niche as a personal brand, I don't think it's important, because at the end of the day, your personal brand is who you are. So if you want to be known for just one thing, then sure, you can pick a niche. But for me, I want to accurately portray my life as authentically as possible. So I'm going to talk about everything I'm interested in.
7, you need a niche down in a way. When I started, I did not agree in that at all. I would say now that I've kind of evolved and I know what my style is, niching is important, even if it's, putting together, like for us, we put together a reel of all of our best products, deciding, hey, I'm a filmmaker, I'm really like here to tell stories through visuals and audio and sound and all of that. Do creators need a niche in order to grow? At this point in 2022, if you're starting from nothing, yeah, 100%, 10 or 11, you need a niche, you need something unique. I would take what are you strong at, what are you passionate about, what very, very, very specific audience can you serve, what questions are people asking you, and in putting that content out to that small group. Because if you're an expert in that space, and again, if you have a legit business behind you, you don't need 1 million followers, you don't even need 1,000 followers to monetize you. You might need 1, 3, 10 people who are really bought into what you're doing and what you're putting out and how you can help them to be.
How do you monetize those creations, and how?
For me, monetizing as a creative, I'd say you can make a decent living if you approach it the right way.
I have monetized my creations in a number of different ways.
Have I monetized my creations? Yes, I've monetized my creations.
I have indirectly monetized my creations online.
In the past, I definitely was not paid what I was worth as a creative, just because you knew, or the world says, hey, you're not quite ready for certain things. When you're starting out, it's really hard because you're learning a lot, you're growing, your content and your development isn't where it's gonna be. So it's hard to ask somebody for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a project when you're first starting, because the quality may not be there to match what you're asking for. But with anything, you put the hours in, those things get better, and then the confidence grows, and you're not afraid to ask for what you believe you deserve and what you believe your worth is. Making money wasn't even in the picture. And then I had someone pay me $75 because I took their engagement photos. I was just gonna do it for free. And I was like, the light went off. I was like, oh, I can make money doing this. I retired from baseball and their wedding was coming up, so I shot my brother and sister-in-law's wedding, and that launched me to all of a sudden now, people were willing to pay me, and I did that for free. Yeah, so ever since then I realized, okay, there is value in what I do. Wasn't afraid after that to kind of just jump in.
We built a presence on LinkedIn, and then I used that audience or community that I had built to launch a course last year, which is a good way of monetizing it. Then I'm working on a podcast, which just all of this awareness helps to drive leads to my company. And about like a quarter of my company's all-time revenue has come from the personal brand that I've built.
We created a company which has been a marketing agency. So I've monetized GGMM, the company, where companies will pay us for our services to create for them, whether it's websites, digital ads, podcasts, other assets that they can use for their companies and help them grow their business. I've also started the podcast, The Go-Getters, where I've monetized that through whether it's sponsorships, people coming on the show and us putting together a whole content package and campaign. As far as podcast monetization goes, I think a lot of people think they're going to launch a podcast and get money off straight ads and sponsors, which the mega shows can do that. You can do that as a mega show. If you're getting less than 50,000 downloads a month, which the average podcast gets 150 downloads a month, it might be less than that now. It's very hard to monetize podcasting. I think for any podcasters out there, you need to think of yourself as a media company, as your own marketing agency, opposed to just, hey, I can do a host read ad on my podcast.
I've built a skill set around making engaging video content for brands. So I've done that for my clients through Blank Slate Media, my company, but then more recently, I've been doing that for other companies. I've been creating content, creating video content for them to run paid ads with. They pay me for those digital assets, sell those advertisement slots on my page, but it's still monetizing the actual skill set of being a creator outside of being the traditional brand partnership or influencer route.
How many hours would you say go into content creation? This is like with social, the different platforms you're on, with your podcast itself, the blogs, anything that you're doing directly. How many hours would you say go into that?
So as far as my podcast goes, I typically put in one to 5 hours of prep time for my podcast, depending on how familiar I am with the interview, the subject, the topic. It's a wide range. Sometimes I read a book if it's an author, which can go 8 hours, but I'm reading that weeks in advance. Personally, I'm putting in anywhere from 2.5 to 10 hours per podcast as the host and quote unquote maybe director of the show. And then my team, they're probably putting in another 10 hours or so, maybe even more than that. So I bet there's almost about 20 hours that go into our podcast.
Since I own a business, I would say that majority of time does go to clients, but either personal branding or branding our business, I'd say probably a quarter of that allocated to our business. Or myself.
I have a team that helps me with it. That's the benefit of owning an agency, but I have a designer and my assistant helps me run content, and I'm still probably spending 12 to 15 of my own hours every single week just creating content, like purely writing, shooting, etc.
Per week, I probably spend between 5 and 10 hours, I would think, personally with my content. I try to do 1 to 2 hours a day or so. Obviously, some weeks are more, some weeks are less, but between that 5 to 10 range is pretty comfortable for myself. As a team, we're creating content and spending 200 to 300 hours a week, every single week, creating for both myself, my team, and all of my clients. So we create hundreds of videos per month.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is it being a creator and why?
10 like hard and 1 is like, I'm gonna answer it like this because this is kind of how it's been for me. Being a creator is like a 1. Like, I love doing this, so even if I was doing another job, which I worked totally out of content creation for years, I still was a creative. Lucky enough to get paid to do it now, so nothing's really changed in how hard it is to do it. So I love doing what I do. I would be doing it whether I was making a dime or not.
I think sometimes it's very easy to be a creator. If you're inspired in that moment, if you're passionate about what you're doing and you can sit down and you're in the flow and you really want to get something out to the world, I think it's pretty easy to be a creator. Now, you don't always get paid a bunch of money to do that. You know, you might not be feeling it, or your back's against the wall and you need to get something done that you need to dig a little deeper to create something. And from creating a business standpoint, the level of difficulty on a scale 1 to 10 is sometimes an 11 or 12 when you're really beat down and you have your back against the wall and you need to do something to just survive or succeed in the business world. Then that level of difficulty is high, but I think a lot of people, when they're put into those situations, kind of dig deep and get the job done.
On a scale from 1 to 10, I would think it's about a 7. Difficulty level of being a creator, 10 being the hardest. Creativity ebbs and flows for me. And it definitely depends on the area you create with and the intentions you're creating with, I suppose. If you're creating just to generate leads for your business and you don't really care about content creation, then it's gonna be way harder for you to sustain the longevity of your content because you're in it for the short-term cash grab. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, thinking back to why I started content creation, it was to simply be able to look back on these videos in 10, 15, 20 years and see my growth. That was the only reason why I started. When I'm in creative flows, I don't have any pressure and I can put my own back against the wall instead of having brands essentially put my back against the wall in a sense.
If I had to put a number on the whole thing, I would say maybe it's like a 7. Parts of it are hard and parts of it are easy. Like when you're a creator and you get crappy comments online or people pick on you for certain things. Like I've been called every freaking name in the book, a bimbo, I don't know, just a ton of different things. And that's hard, right? It gets easier to deal with over time, but that is hard. The act of creating for me is not in itself difficult, though it can be hard to get started because when you're building a brand that's you're putting yourself out there. So that took a while to get used to too. You can't just put it out there and be like, oh, well, I hope people want to pay me money. There's a lot of strategy, there's a lot of work, consistency, patience, money that goes into creating money from a personal brand. So I think it's very difficult.
Has social media or has just being a content creator in general impacted you negatively in any way?
Social media and content creation as a whole has impacted me negatively by comparison. Social media amplifies that because it's a true collection of millions and millions of people and data points and videos and podcasts that you can get overwhelmed and you can start comparing yourself to. And I think that's such a dangerous narrative to play, and that's something I still struggle with today. Have I gotten better? Yes, but it's, again, something I constantly try to work on, where I see someone's video do better than me, or I see someone growing faster than me, and I constantly compare myself. Hey, why aren't my videos growing that fast? Why aren't I getting those views? And at the end of the day, I try to just go back to my original intention with these videos.
Ooh. Number one, my bank account, because I see really cool gear and want it. Negatively, really just the keeping up with the Jones thing, and sometimes as I've gotten older, better at this. You know, I see stuff and I don't feel as bad about myself, you know, as a content creator, because sometimes you'll be like, man, I'm just so far away from my goals because people are just doing this and they're out creating and making stuff all the time. Especially when I had my regular 9-to-5 job and I was sitting at a desk, it really affected me because I felt like I was missing out on all the things I could be making, and it made me, wore me down a little bit. I just don't want it to affect my creative process unless it is inspiring me in a way, not copying or thinking I have to do something like someone else. That's where it can be negative.
Well, I've lost friends, but is that a negative impact, really? I don't think it is, because when people come out and they say bad things about you, or they're like, I unfollowed you because your content is stupid, it's like, were those people really your friends in the first place? It seems like a negative at the time, and then it turns out that it was actually a positive. There's a lot of naysayers and a lot of people, I just got the questions for a podcast that I'm going to be on in a few weeks, and it's like, you've built your brand in an interesting way by oversharing on social media, and that's not how I see it at all. And so I think that there's just a lot of people that have those opinions, and it's good and bad.
I think the negative side to social media for a lot of people, whether they're a content creator or just a content consumer, kind of the addiction and the dopamine rush of, if I'm putting out content, yeah, I'll admit I'm that guy who's kind of scrolling and hitting refresh every 5 minutes to see, hey, is this resonating? Are people liking this? Are people commenting? What action am I getting? I publish a podcast and yeah, I'm hitting refresh, every hour or two right after that, just to check check the downloads or the morning after. So I think the downside is the attention that you give it, and sometimes the attention that you give it and the response that others are giving you and the validation you seek outside yourself isn't necessarily healthy. So I think that would be the downside, and I think it's pretty easy to get wrapped up in that.
How would you say social media or content, or just being a content creator, has impacted you positively?
Content creation has affected me positively because it's been a place for me to get things out of my head and clear my brain, and it gives me an endorphin rush and it makes me happy. Creating is an extremely important thing for me spiritually, honestly, just to find myself. I was an athlete and I'd never explored that, and as an athlete, it's always hard, gung-ho, and there's a lot that goes into it and overthinking about yourself. But in high school, I really loved drawing and art, and my mom was into art, being an artist and that kind of stuff, and I just never explored it. And when I did it felt right, and it felt like who I was supposed to be.
The biggest positive impact content creation, social media in general has had on me being courageous to put myself out there. I remember a few videos when I was first starting, I was talking about kind of vulnerability of, hey, a lot of people think you need everything figured out and need to portray a perfect life on social, and that's the exact opposite direction I took my content at the start. I was just trying to be as authentic as possible and say, this is who I am. I'm trying to build companies. I'm an 18, 19-year-old kid, and I really don't know a lot of things, but I'm really hungry to learn, and I'm just gonna document that journey. So from a self-awareness standpoint, it's been huge because now I've been able to look back at those exact same videos when I was 18, 19, and now being 22, even though that's not that much older, I've created thousands of videos in that time frame. So from a self-awareness standpoint, I can really see the growth.
I think that being a creator is the entire thing that got my business to where it is right now. Before I started creating specifically on LinkedIn and then expanded to other platforms, my business was struggling. It was really, really struggling. We would take one step forward and two steps back. We couldn't hit the revenue numbers that we wanted. I kept hiring employees and they kept leaving. We'd get clients, they would leave. I just felt like I couldn't get the system right. It's no surprise to me, and I don't think it's a coincidence that everything started changing when I started creating, because building this personal brand allows people to know you and trust you, and they want to work with you and they want to work for you. So, it's literally changed my entire life.
It's led to a lot more relationships, and these aren't just online relationships. Creating content it's led to a good amount of business. It's led to a good amount of valuable relationships that are not just online relationships. And I think I've been able to impact a number of people very positively on certain things that I've spoken out on, especially when it came to kind of coming out about some of the anxiety issues I've gone through and pushed through. A lot of people reached out to me after that, and I'm not talking thousands of people, maybe in the 100 or so people, but I feel like I impacted those lives, and that doesn't count the people who just consume that content. So, and that feels good, being able to put something out there and people positively responding to it and being able to impact people.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend that someone else, maybe in a similar position that you were before, becomes a creator, and why?
I think on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10 if you want to create content and you're willing to put in the work and the time and everything that's required. If you just want to put yourself out there and hope something good happens for a little bit of time, it's a 1. You definitely shouldn't start. But I think if you have an idea of what you're getting yourself into and you're willing to put in the work, anyone should create. It's a beautiful experience.
It depends on their personality. If they feel a need to put something out and they enjoy doing it and they're passionate about doing it and they want to do it, then it's a 10. I've gotten a lot of benefits out of it. But on the flip side, if they're dragging their feet or forcing themselves, or they're oh, should I have to put this video out today? Then, I think it's fine to stay in your lane. Maybe find someone on your team who is creative, who will put out that content for your company. But again, you don't have to do it to be successful and make a good living.
An 8, which is fairly high. And I say that because it's a chance that you're probably uncomfortable doing it. You probably are scared of what people think if you haven't created content, and you probably don't know yourself too much, or you don't know what you want to talk about, or what you're interested in. So kind of those 4 or 5 things.
10. even if you aren't trying to monetize, everyone should be a content creator because everyone has a story to tell and the world is waiting to hear it.
Let's pause it right there. So very quickly, 2 things. 1, this is one of the first videos that we shot, and I realized after the fact that I totally forgot to shoot an outro, and honestly, I barely even shot intro as well. But second, and most importantly, I will be choosing people for these experiences and for the social experiments from my text community. So if you want to participate in any in-person events or digital events, text the number that's popping up on the screen. And if you want to keep up to date with any other events that we do or any social experiments that we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's it. I'm done. That's the outro.
All right, focus. Ready? Take 1, Sam. My name's Sam Lister. I create stuff.
A rolling, B rolling, audio speeding, Sam Lister.